Hello. So I'm here with Leanne Browne and Leslie Harrison and Sophia DuRose to talk about a poem by Shetland poet Roseanne Watts called Kishie Wife. And I thought we could start with Leslie reading the poem.
Kishie Wife, Uta Dakes. Though some say otherwise, she was the first who went to which the...
It's okay to start over.
Kishie Wife, Uta Dakes. Though some say otherwise, she was the first who went to fetch the fire from the hills. Of course she was. No one else could bear a load like that, slung over her back like an infant, all its brilliant, burning weight.
Thank you. So let's start with the title. What is Kishie?
It's the basket that they put the pizza in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Was that a quiz question?
Woven, no, I just wanted to put it out there.
Yeah.
A woven wicker basket.
Yeah.
Straw basket for holding fish. I also found a rack for holding bobbins and spools for spinning. Was another one. Okay. And then the Otadex is a place occupied by humans, not a normal place of abode. It was a definition that I found for that, but it's actually a place.
It sounds like the Outer Banks.
Yeah, it
Uta
does.
The Uter Decks.
It's like the opposite would be Inadex.
Oh.
So in the previous poem, had to go get Inadex.
What's the Decks part?
Well, it's I'm not Shetlandic, but part of the dialect, so the one's in and one's out. So Dex, I wonder if it's, I would be speculating.
Yeah.
I'd need to look up a Shetlandic dictionary to see what Dex on its own means, if it means anything. Maybe it's just a handy syllable to stick on the end.
Like a place? I mean, it's a place.
Yeah. Sounds like the decks of a ship, but I don't know if that's the connection. So,
Okay, so let's go to the first line. Though some would say otherwise. So Sophia, I want to ask anything you want to say. The first question that comes to mind to me immediately is who is the some and what is the otherwise? But I don't know if we can answer those questions, but when you read that first line, what happens?
I don't know if I can answer those questions either, but I think the decision to start a poem with the presentation of this contradiction, like there's this imagined invisible truth, but the poem is physical in front of us contradicting whatever that truth is, though some say otherwise, and then gives the actual truth of it. I would posit that maybe the otherwise is history in a general sense, or legend. Yeah.
Really well said. So there's this immediate tension and a voice signaling there's multiple possible stories here, and the other ones aren't true, and I'm going to tell you. So then the next question, she was the first. So, I think there's a lot of ways we could read the she, but where would we start? Like, let's go to Leanne and then Leslie.
Well, it seems like it's positing a female-centered myth, like that it's a matriarchal myth that has been hidden by time. So, like the dominant culture is the some say otherwise. And they say just like some of those people, but we know the matriarchal truth, kind of, right? The origin, the mother. Yeah.
it's interesting that first is the last word on that line as well, because it really makes her into, a very sort of primal, significant figure. She was the first. And then you pause automatically because it's the end of a line, and then we learn more about what she was the first in, but it's, it's a very bold, short line, stopping where it stops.
That's amazing. I hadn't thought about the placement of the word first as the last word in the line, which is I think it's great to point to that because the poem is tiny, and yet it evokes so much, and there's so much care in every single word, and the placement in every single word in the line breaks. So we have, though some say otherwise, she was the first who went to fetch the fire.
So that does the same thing. Like, that's a question. Who went to fetch the fire? She went to fetch the fire. It's like it's a question and an answer in the same line, the way it's framed.
There's a real sort of prehistoric drama in that she brought fire, she fetched fire, something that's at the very heart of your home, and especially somewhere where it's very cold, and heat is essential to cooking and being alive. So it really sets her up as a very primal, very fundamental, nurturing figure.
Yeah, the hearth.
And went to fetch it. Like, she didn't create it. She went to fetch it. So there's
You're
like this,
carrying that in your hands.
so there's this like respect for the natural existence of something, and the person who can respect it enough to like bring it back, not just like create it out of thin air.
And usually you think of fetching water, but it's like fetching fire, the opposite. And it's also like the hearth and Hestia, the hearth goddess. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about the tension between fetch and fire as if it were water or, fetch me a coffee or whatever it is. You can't really fetch fire in the way that you can fetch water or a spoon or an apple or whatever it is. So there's this immediate tension between this everyday idea of, I'm just going to go and get that, and fire. So what does it mean to fetch fire? So we started with some associations, hearth and home. I also think of it as this tool when humans learn to make fire and the magic. Yeah.
I just thought I'm associating with my grandmother used to say if somebody was attractive that they're fetching. So like you're drawing it to you because you're fetching. Like oh, she's so fetching. But that was like the light version of this is like it's like this powerful spell, like of like conjuring the fire, bringing it to you, bringing it.
There's that alliteration too. I mean, fetch, I would say, is quite a common word, go and fetch this or fetch him. It's something that, a word that I or my grandparents or whoever would use a lot, So fetching the fire is it's got a real ring to it. It sounds like, something that would be said in ordinary speech. We enjoy alliteration and a lot to fetch the fire. So,
Have you ever heard it as a noun, a fetch? Like a spirit or like a...
No, really?
I think I saw that, like a fetch. I think so.
The language is evolving.
Like a being that would do that like for you.
Yeah.
And then it just keeps building. So fetch the fire from the hills. So then it throws another wrench in. How can you fetch fire from hills? So I guess there's fetching fuel that will build a fire in a literal sense. But I'm also really interested in the more metaphorical meanings of what does it mean to fetch fire from hills? What is that?
Well, the peat or the actual earth of the hills, like the...
Right, that's a literal.
Yeah, okay.
And then mythological, like there are many myths about the bringers of fire in all kinds of different mythologies.
I like how she domesticated it. She's so powerful. She's not fire being a destructive force, perhaps. I like how she just put it in her basket and brought it home. I like that powerfulness.
And how is it that you can put fire in a woven straw basket and the basket doesn't catch on fire? So that makes me think that there's something else going on here besides the daily, I need fuel for my fire, I need fire for my fire.
You're saying it's like a mythic version of hills, like it's like something far away, like over in the hills, like from the hills, like the highlands, or I don't know, like the Appalachian Mountains too, or like this mysterious place, or all these ridges, and there's all these hidden places and hills, like valleys, and there's like secret places there.
What's secret about this?
She has to leave to go to the hills to fetch this fire. Like, she can't do it with anyone else. She's not doing it with anyone else. She has to do this like mystery act of getting it and bringing it back. And we don't really know how she does it, right? We just know she did. She was the first.
Of course she was.
Yeah.
So what's happening? Right. So let's talk about that line. Of course she was.
But it's so emphatic, and it's like, of course she was. It's also like a casual line. It's like both. It's like, it's like a emphasis, but it's also, of course she was. Of course she was. Curtis.
It's also a further refute of some say otherwise. It's back to, of course she was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a further refute of that.
It feels conversational yet assertive in a, I don't know, in a powerful yet quiet. Of course she was. Like, don't argue with me. This is
The truth.
This is the truth. This is how it was. No one else could bear a load like that. So what is a load like that? Like, what is the weight implied?
Well, it's like a pregnancy too. Like the bear is to give birth.
That word on the end of the line is interesting because it's also bare emotions or bare feelings. Nobody else could bear. And then it's, the next line tells us what she's bearing, but, she must have been, the implication is that maybe she was bearing so many other things, that responsibility for keeping a family going, this big mythic figure that contained fire. So that's another interesting line break, another interesting white space. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think about bearing witness. What did she see? What can she tell us?
A load like that slung over her back. I think about just the power of bringing life, and so metaphorically, like there's this idea of an infant, a new life, but bringing fire, like bringing this power to the people as a secret, and nobody knows who is the she that's doing it, but we know it was her. It had to be her. No one else could have. It seems like it's a creation myth for life.
There's an echo. For sure.
Yeah. A load like that slung over her back like an infant, all its brilliant, burning weight.
You think of an infant being carried on the back in different cultures, but it's also the burning babe that of like this kind of, there's a Helen Adam character that's like in this Southwell Johnson, the burning babe, that famous poem, like this sort of Christ child, or like this, miraculous child that's on fire, like with power.
I was thinking about how this, as a feminist retelling of the bringer of fire, that couples this quotidian, domestic, with this mythic incarnation, and how that's different from the Greek and Prometheus or Hestia or Native American or other stories about the bringer of fire. Yeah. Why don't we each go around and have one more, anything you want to say, maybe Sophia, Leanne, myself, and then Leslie.
Okay. I'm thinking about the kind of retelling of, or reimagining of what it means to be like in a gathering position. Like we have the dichotomy of a hunter and a gatherer, and the maybe false weight that one is more important than the other or whatnot. But I'm stuck on fetch, like the gathering of fire and the mystery of that. And I think this poem is just all about potential.
Amazing. Leanne?
Yeah, that makes me think of the word brilliant, like as in not only burning with light, but also just intelligence, the brilliancy of this new story, or old story, I mean. Yeah.
Wow. I was reading about, trying to find Scottish myths about Firebringer, and I came across this ancient fires lit across Scotland for good fortune and to ward off evil. And I think it was like a pine, it was a needle fire, but it would take many, many men to make it, like 60 to 90 men, something like this. And I was thinking how this is such a stark contrast. It was one woman, it was a secret, and it's a mystery. initiation as opposed to like 100 men lighting fires all over to create good fortune.
There's in the Northern Isles, there's a lot of hills called Ward Hill, and that was where the fire was, and you were visible to the next Ward Hill. So there's lots of hills called Ward Hill, and if I think, because I remember, for example, if the Vikings were sighted, or if there was something significant happened, then a fire would be lit, and then it would be a chain reaction. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's in the South. They would be like ballad singers that would sing from mountaintop to mountaintop, like a
There you go.
relay. Like
Yeah.
that's so great. Like
To pass it
a
on.
ballad, fire ballad, like a ballad
Yeah.
that would be fire on the hills, like in the ancient Celtic kind of fires, like the like the ritual fires, signal fires.
Yeah, so that was like a collective activity, that was a communication, and this is more of a private, secret, mythical, and of course the she isn't named. So
She's very ordinary, the Kishie wife. That's it. Who's out the door? It's the Kishie wife. It's the woman with the peats, in the back of her basket. But I love how she's made so powerful by just where the line breaks are. Look at the words that are on the end. First, fire. Of course she was. Bear, back, brilliant, wait. All these powerful, powerful words are right to the end of the sentence. She's made into this, really powerful person that's just a very ordinary person just walking past the door. I love how she's empowered by us and she's still anonymous.
So an act that would be invisible becomes actually the most powerful act of all.
Yeah, the fish wife rhymes with Kishie wife. Fish wife, just very.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Just somebody gets fish?
Yeah, and the wife bit is just a very ordinary word for a woman.
Woman,
Just,
yeah.
it's that post wife, it's the teacher wife, it's the fish wife, it's the Kishie wife.
Fantastic. The ordinary word for woman becomes
Yeah.
the bringer of fire. Thank you all.